Hi, so today I'll be presenting the Physics 2212 Lab 2, which is modeling using line charges. So, a bit of an intro is that the purpose of this experiment is to observe interaction between charged pieces of tape to determine the excess charges residing on those tapes. And as far as the models and concepts that are in use, we need to account for the fact that there's gravitational force, which is given by negative m times g. And then we're also going to use the formula for an electric field for a rod because we want to treat the tape as a rod with uniformly distributed charge. So the equation for that is given by 1 all over 4 pi epsilon naught times q all over r times r squared plus L over 2 squared. And then the electric force is given by two different equations. One is Q times E, or K Q1 Q2 all over R squared. And in many cases, the gravitational force and electric force tend to be the same magnitude but opposite in direction. So as far as the experiment goes, in experiment one, we made a charged tape, and the system was the tape that's suspended while the surroundings, or the tape that is held, and pretty much everything else, so earth, the desk that the tapes were on, all that. And then the results that we got from the experiment was that the U tape was repelled by another U tape, the U tape was attracted to my hand, the U tape was attracted to a negatively charged pen, and from that we can conclude that the U tape is positively charged and displayed a loss in electrons because we were given that the pen was negatively charged, and we know that opposites attract and like repel when it comes to charge. So as a result, the U tape also needs to be positively charged. And then some of the data and calculations that were gathered from the experiment was that the tape length was about zero point 0.2 meters, the width was about 0.019 meters, the mass was approximately 0.00015 kilograms, and then when the tapes were floating, the distance between the two tapes was approximately 0.029 meters. And then if we calculate the force of gravity, we get a value of approximately 0.0015. And then the charge on the tape from lab 1, which was using point charges, was approximately 1.17 times 10 to the negative 8 coulombs. And then the calculations that were done in lab 2 led us to a that the charge of the tape is approximately 3.36 times 10 to the negative 8 coulombs, and this was given to us by kind of just doing trial and error until the magnitude of the gravitational force equal the magnitude of the electric force. And here is some of the code that was written. So as you can see on the right, the magnitude of the electric force and the magnitude of the gravitational force are equal. They just point in opposite directions. And then you can see here we have the Q value for the net charge on one tape, which is 3.36 times 10 to the negative 8. And then we also calculated the electric field here. And then similarly, we played around with some of the scale values and drawing the arrows properly so that it can appear as shown on the right. And then there also may have been some errors in the experiment. For example, the measurements may have been a little bit inaccurate. For example, the separation between the tapes at the point of floating may have been not super accurate since we were using a ruler. And then my hand itself may have impacted the charge. And then to answer the question, what if I had modeled each of the tapes as a single point charge, like in the previous lab, and compared my values from both labs? In lab 1, the value of the tape, the charge of the tape was approximately 1.17 times 10 to the negative 8 coulombs, and in lab 2 it was approximately 3.36 times 10 to the negative 8 coulombs. And because we can see that lab 2 has a higher charge value because of the way the experiment was done. And as far as answering the question, why do these estimates differ and which values likely to be closer to the real value and why, there's probably differences from the fact that charge is uniformly distributed in lab 2. And then I think the line charge is better because tapes are more like a line charge than a point charge, and the rod is a better model for tape. And then the conclusions I have is that the data from experiments can be faulty, and it's better to repeat experiments multiple times to determine the validity and accuracy of the results, and that electric and gravitational forces are all around us.